In modern-day Japan, a legendary priest named Shigure Aotsuki tells an ancient story to his son, Ushio Aotsuki. Shigure reminds his son that they are in charge of protecting the Fujian Temple, a temple that has guarded the spear of a demon hunter for 500 years. For although they cannot see them with fleshly eyes, demons do exist. As Ushio pays no attention to his father's words, the two end up fighting. Shigure tells his son that he will go out to see the sea, which upsets Ushio, as it is literally the third time in a month that his father has gone out to do that. Ushio is left in charge of taking care of the temple, so he sets about tidying things up and cleaning up a bit. Accidentally, he stumbles upon a basement door he hadn't seen before and is curious to see what's in there, but immediately regrets it, as he finds a 1,000-year-old demon locked in there. Fortunately, he realizes that the monster has the Kemonoyari spear embedded in his chest, and that it prevents him from moving. The monster asks him to take it out, but admits that it will eat the whole world as soon as it gets rid of the spear. As Ushio has no cognitive problems, he decides to leave the place, but not before torturing the monster for a few moments. Although the monster tries several times to convince him to release it, Ushio closes the entrance to the basement with wood. Later, Ushio heads to school and meets his friends Inoue and Nakamura on the way, who demands the return of a notebook he lent him several days ago. Ushio tells him that he can pick it up after school, and they both rush into class. Throughout the day, we see that Ushio is part of the art club and likes to draw, as well as having a love-hate relationship with Nakamura. Upon returning home, Ushio lies down to rest for a moment, not remembering that his friends would come to pick up the notebook as they agreed in the morning. When they arrive, he goes out to greet them and is confused to see floating beings everywhere, so he immediately runs to see the basement demon, and he reveals that all the demonic energy that was in the basement was released in all directions when he opened the basement. So now there are demons everywhere, and Ushio is the only one able to see them, since he was the person who opened the basement. Fearing what might happen to his friends, Ushio makes the demon promise not to do anything to them, and the demon agrees, so Ushio takes the spear from him. However, the demon announces that he will break his promise and taunts Ushio by telling him that he was very unbelieving, which makes Ushio furious, and he takes the spear in his hands, absorbing a kind of power and changing even his hairstyle. The demon sees this and is frightened, as Ushio makes him remember the person who locked him in the basement. The demon runs away, and Ushio goes after him, convincing him that he will let him live if he helps him defeat the demons. Working as a team, they manage to wipe out all the demons in just a few attacks. Ushio realizes that he has practically become one with the spear, but he knows that this power will sooner or later turn him into a demon. Ushio threatens the demon, telling him that he will not let him escape, and christens him Tora. The next day, Ushio goes to school with Tora, talking to Tora as if no one else could hear him. Obviously, the demon only agreed because he doesn't want Ushio to spear him. While Ushio's friends make fun of him for being so bad at art, the waifus arrive and tell him that they both had the same dream, referring to what happened the day before. They also tell him that they will go to the old school building to look for some things, plus they will take a closer look at the old stone armor that is supposedly there. Obviously, Tora teases Ushio by telling him that he is in love with her friend. The waifus tour the old school building and indeed find out the hard way that what was said about the stone armor was more than rumors. During class, Ushio hears a loud noise and senses that the spear is trying to tell him something, so he takes it in his hands and immediately runs to see what is going on. In the hallway, he finds that one of his classmates is turning to stone. The entire school is put under surveillance, as 5 female students have gone missing. Ushio asks Tora what he knows about all this, so the demon explains that the culprits are monsters called rock eaters, who love to turn their victims into stone to torture them psychologically, besides being able to create spiritual barriers to hide their presence. At that moment, the monster attacks the waifus to make them feel fear, but Nakamura resists until the last moment, remembering Ushio. A moment later, Ushio arrives on the scene with Tora and tries to save the waifus, but he literally discovered his powers a chapter ago, so he is no match for such a monster and ends up being subdued in the most humiliating way ever. Before turning to stone, he begs Tora to save the waifus, but Tora tells him that this is not the time to think of others, but of himself. However, seeing that Ushio did not change his mind, Tora decides to do his bidding. Obviously, he was not going to leave Ushio, so he went over to stop the monster from finishing the closing of the stone barrier. Kemonoyari, the legendary spear, flies towards Ushio to break the stone enchantment, and Tora discovers that Ushio is learning to use the spear masterfully, as he literally removed all the petrification using the power of the spear. Plus, he defeated the statue in one blow and freed the waifus. However, the real demon was inside the armor and took advantage of Ushio's moment of distraction to escape. Anyway, Ushio went after the demon and managed to defeat it following Tora's advice, without noticing that the whole fight was being recorded by the local news. Days later, Ushio's father spends the whole morning talking about a legendary warrior who managed to defeat a fearsome demon using the Kemonoyari spear and who managed to lock the demon in the basement and founded the Aotsuki dynasty. As Ushio doesn't pay attention to him, the two end up fighting as usual. Ushio leaves the place carrying the spear, although his father does not believe that it is the real spear. However, he ends up realizing that the basement has been opened, so he is left in a state of shock. Later, Ushio and her friends go to an art gallery to see some paintings, and stop to look at one in particular. Ushio tells them the story of the strange author of said work, revealing that he gradually became a dark and twisted artist. One of the waifus notices that the painting is not original, so Ushio explains to her that the original painting is surely in the hands of the author's daughter. The waifu mentions that the model in the painting looks familiar, and everyone quickly leaves the place. Tora realizes that the author of the painting evidently despised humans, so it is almost certain that, after his death, he became a demon. The next day, Ushio is bullied by Mizaki, a bully at school. However, a classmate of Ushio's appears and asks Mizaki to hit her instead of Ushio, since she doesn't care if she is still alive or not. Upon seeing this waifu, Ushio immediately realizes that it is Reiko, the daughter of the painter they were talking about in the morning. Although they are classmates, Ushio had never realized this before. Ushio asks Reiko to pose for him so he can paint her in a picture, but the twisted waifu tells him to stay away from her if he doesn't want to lose his life, as her father's spirit is after her. After this, a speeding truck tries to run over Tora, but Ushio manages to cut it in half using the spear, revealing that the truck was possessed by a demon. Later, Asako interrogates Ushio during tea time to ask why he was talking to Reiko, and although she tries to camouflage her jealousy, she is reassured to learn that Ushio only wanted to paint a portrait of Reiko. Asako tells Ushio that Reiko was the center of attention for the boys because of her beauty, but that they all ended up suffering serious accidents. Soon after, Reiko did her best to lose her life, but they managed to rescue her just in time. Upon returning to school, she warned everyone to stay away from her, as something tragic would happen to them. Asako tried to ignore this, but tragedy almost overtook her, and it was Reiko herself who had to intervene to save her. Back in the present, Ushio meets Mizaki while returning home, and after fighting for a few moments, Mizaki tells Ushio that he has been friends with Reiko since they were children, and that her father started to go crazy after Reiko's mother left the house. Soon after, Reiko's father passed away, and strange things have been happening around her ever since. The next day, Ushio uses the festival's folk dance as an excuse to approach Reiko, but only moments later the demon that is chasing her appears and attacks Ushio. Tora rushes to the rescue and manages to scare the demon away, but Reiko runs out of the place to put an end to the curse that is chasing her. Mizaki takes Ushio to Reiko's house just in time to prevent Reiko from ending her life, which provokes the fury of the demon, who begins to attack them violently and manages to lock them all in the dimension that has been created inside his paintings. Tora manages to get them all out of there, and Ushio uses the spear to finish off the demon. Reiko's father's soul is released, and he says goodbye peacefully to his daughter, but not before thanking the boys for saving Reiko. Reiko's expression changes completely, and Ushio leaves the place, leaving his friends surprised, since Ushio literally is a demon hunter. On the other hand, an unexpected accident occurs in an area near Ushio's house, as a group of builders accidentally releases a group of demons that were sealed inside some boxes. The next day, Ushio sees on TV the accident that cost the lives of so many people and becomes furious with Tora, as there were strange marks at the accident site, and Ushio suspects Tora. Because of this, the demon takes offense and leaves the scene, as he had nothing to do with the incident. Ushio goes out to look for Tora, and finds an old man being scolded by a group of policemen, as the old man tries to explain to everyone that the people responsible for the incident are demons called Gamin-sama. Ushio is surprised to hear this, and as he approaches, the old man tells him that the person in charge of sealing said yokai demons was a medium named Mikado Hizaki. Ushio sees a photograph of said medium and notices that she looks almost exactly like his friend Inoue. Meanwhile, Tora literally wanders around the city marveling at the tremendous technological innovations that mankind has developed in the last 500 years. The old man tells Ushio the story of Mikado in depth, and the young man despairs when he hears that demons would devour anyone who looks like Mikado, so he immediately runs to find his friend. Fortunately for him, Tora already had Inoue in sight, as he wanted to eat her, but he became alert when he sensed the presence of other demons. Ushio arrives on the scene at that precise moment and uses his spear to stop the Gamin-sama. Inoue runs to a shopping mall to get to safety, but the demons manage to catch up with her, and Inoue's life seems to come to an end. However, Tora miraculously appears and saves her, arguing that he will not let lesser demons be in charge of engulfing a human as delicious as Inoue. With all his strength, he manages to wipe out almost all the demons, but one of them slips away and manages to reach Inoue. Fortunately, Ushio arrives at that moment and saves the waifu from the demon. He also takes the moment to apologize to Tora for having doubted him without proof, for which Tora begins to mock Ushio. As a form of thanks, Inoue gives Tora a hamburger, as he has heard that Tora hasn't eaten for over 500 years, which confuses Tora, although it makes him tender. Weeks later, a prestigious exorcist named Hugh takes on two demons who commit atrocities using human bodies to camouflage themselves. After finishing his mission, Hugh sees on TV that Tora is in Japan, so he decides to take matters into his own hands. Meanwhile, Tora wakes Ushio up in the middle of the night to fight, and manages to wound him in the eye, but the spear starts protecting Ushio automatically, so Tora leaves the place mocking Ushio. The next day, Ushio starts looking for Tora everywhere, but finds Hugh in a park, who is beating up some ruffians. Hugh immediately attacks Ushio, as he can feel Tora's presence in him. But upon seeing that Ushio is the bearer of the legendary spear, he humbles himself before him to ask for forgiveness, which leaves Ushio very confused. Unbeknownst to them, Tora was watching the whole thing. Hugh reveals that in the past, Tora killed his wife and daughter, as well as hurt his face. Because of this, Hugh vowed revenge against Tora, and spent years of his life training to become one of the best exorcists. Ushio knows that Tora couldn't have been to blame for that, since he spent the last 500 years locked in his basement. But due to the fight he had with him in the morning, he decides to give Tora's information to Hugh. However, Ushio regrets it only moments later, and spends the time thinking about it. Meanwhile, Tora and Hugh meet and start fighting fiercely. For the rest of the day, Ushio feels remorse for betraying Tora, but after his waifu lectures him, he decides to take matters into his own hands and runs to the park again to make up for his mistake. When he arrives, he finds Tora extremely damaged, as Hugh is literally fighting with all his fury. Ushio tries to convince him that Tora is not responsible for what happened to his family, explaining that Tora was locked up for 500 years, plus the marks on his eyes are different. This infuriates Hugh, as he spent the last years of his life looking for someone wrong. Upon seeing this, Ushio tries to convince Hugh, but Hugh won't stop venting his anger at Tora, so he steps in to save Tora and convince Hugh that if he takes Tora's life he won't do justice, he will only become a murderer. This strikes a chord with Hugh, who decides to bandage Ushio's wounds. The next day, Tora forgets the idea of eating Ushio for some time, as he literally saved his life. Days later, Ushio and his waifus are invited by Nakamura's grandparents to spend a few days of vacation at the beach. Suddenly, a boy makes mischief with Ushio's spear, so Ushio starts to reprimand him, and the rude boy leaves the place immediately. Later, Nakamura's grandparents explain that the boy is little Tatsuya, who has been an orphan for some time and has not stopped playing pranks since then. Meanwhile, Tora meets Umizatu, who inhabits the waters and controls the sea monsters. Umizatu begs Tora to take down a fearsome demon that terrorizes everyone in the place, which excites Tora, as he wishes to measure himself against an opponent of his level. On the other hand, Ushio scares Tatsuya away after scolding him again for being so naughty, but Nakamura goes after the little boy to comfort him. When he finds him, he discovers a group of bullies bullying him, so he beats them up and spends time comforting the boy. Meanwhile, Tora fiercely confronts the demon, but seeing that both he and Umizatu are in trouble, he decides to ask for help from Ushio, who, upon learning that his waifu and Tatsuya are inside the stomach of a supposed giant snake, understands that something strange is going on. With Umizatu's help, Ushio encounters the demon and begins to confront it. However, he decides to break the magical barrier to weaken the demon and goes deep into its body to destroy it. Meanwhile, Tora helps Nakamura and Tatsuya, as he knows that they are important people to Ushio. When Ushio arrives on the scene, things get even more complicated, but Ushio manages to motivate Tatsuya to help Nakamura and controls the spear to defeat the monster together with Tora, seeing the souls of all the humans that the demon had absorbed. The next day, Tatsuya emotionally says goodbye to the best waifu in the anime and gives Ushio the present his mother had given him. A flashback shows that Umizato revealed to Ushio that his mother is still alive, so back in the present, Ushio confronts his father. However, he evades the issue and does his best to escape the situation. Fortunately for him, the phone rings, and he takes advantage of the situation to leave the place, but not before managing to immobilize Ushio and Tora. Then, Shigure calls an assembly with his superiors to inform them what has happened with the spear, which provokes everyone's fury. In any case, Shigure manages to convince them that Ushio is a complete fool, but that he is highly competent to manipulate the spear, on the condition that he keeps a close eye on his son and that he takes care of taking down Tora. The assembly allows Ushio to use the spear. In the evening, Shigure slaps Ushio for dishonoring the spear by using it like a brainless man, but Ushio puts the old man in his place by reminding him that he still owes him an explanation for hiding his mother's whereabouts from him. After dinner, Shigure gives Ushio a large amount of money and tells him that he must travel if he wants to know more about his mother, whereupon Ushio realizes that his mother's situation is quite complex, which provokes a great deal of curiosity. After this, Shigure reveals that he is much more than the guardian of the temple, but that he is dedicated to sealing demons and controlling the spirit world. For this reason, Shigure invites Tora to fight, as he must seal it to maintain order. Obviously, Tora can't resist the desire to fight, and the two of them go out to punch each other. Ushio tries to stop them and interrupts the fight several times, but they don't even pay attention to him, so Ushio decides to use the spear to stop them. Seeing this, Shigure reveals that he just wanted to show the other members of the Brotherhood that Tora is not a problem for society. However, the monks enter the scene and refuse to believe that a demon can live without tormenting humans, so a big fight breaks out. Shigure tells Ushio to seize the moment and escape, but Ushio decides to fight the Brotherhood alongside his father. The monks use ancestral powers to immobilize Tora, but he proves to them that he is on another level and manages to finish them off without taking their lives, which surprises Shigure since he really obeys Ushio. The next day, Shigure says goodbye to his son emotionally, giving him a comb. Days later, Ushio and Tora arrive at the airport to catch their flight to Ushio's uncle's house, where they will get some clues. During the wait, they hear that a monster attacked a plane a few days ago, costing the lives of several people. Among them, the father of a loli named Yu. To get more information, Ushio sits next to the waifu and takes the moment to calm her down, as she is scared. However, Yu reveals that her father was the pilot of the ship that crashed recently, and that Atsuzawa, the man who keeps apologizing to her constantly, does not admit responsibility for the incident and argues that it was a monster that attacked the plane. A few minutes later, Atsuzawa takes advantage of the fact that Yu is already asleep and begins to tell Ushio everything that happened, as Ushio told him that he would believe his every word. At that moment, a strange pressure starts to be felt all over the place, and they realize almost immediately that they are attacked by the monster that caused the misfortune. Ushio convinces Tora to take care of the monster, so it surfaces and engages in combat, while Atsuzawa takes control of the ship, the original pilots having been shot down. Tora seems to finish off the monster quickly, and everyone on the plane calms down. Obviously, the monster is not that weak, and Ushio must intervene using the spear, so he collaborates with Tora to damage the demon. However, the best way to finish the demon once and for all is to use a large amount of fire, so Atsuzawa calls for reinforcements in the army, and Ushio must go to the surface of the plane with Tora's help to cut off the demon's limbs and have the army planes exterminate the demon using missiles. When everything seemed to return to normal, Atsuzawa discovers that the plane was heavily damaged, so Ushio uses reverse psychology to get Tora to help terrorize the plane. Once safe, Yu and Atsuzawa bid an emotional farewell to their rescuers. Days later, Ushio realizes that he has misplaced his money and scours the city looking for it, but quickly realizes that something strange is going on. Tora explains to him that there are two demons lurking around the place, but Ushio finds out for himself instantly, as one of them attacks him by surprise. Ushio manages to defend himself, but when he was about to finish with the demon, a waifu appears in front of him asking for forgiveness. So Tora explains that they were just testing him. As they have -1000 IQ, Ushio and Tora go to the house of their attackers only to find out that they were trying to get their attention, since they need help to finish with their brother Juro, who does not stop sowing chaos in humanity. Tora and the waifu go outside so that her brother can explain the whole situation to Ushio, and quickly, Tora can notice the contempt that the waifu has for humans because they took her land. Juro suddenly arrives to say goodbye to his brothers, as he wants to completely exterminate the humans in the city. Ushio takes the spear and tries to fight him, but is knocked out with just one blow, so Tora must intervene and buy some time for the fight to be postponed. The brothers heal Ushio using special medicine, and they all set off in search of Juro, who is found near a highway under construction, as the waifu reveals that Juro was extremely kind in the past, and that his hatred of humans is due to the fact that they have taken his land many times. When they finally meet Juro, they try to convince him to stop attacking humans, but he responds violently, destroying part of a mountain to bury them alive. However, he is surprised to see Ushio and Tora go to great lengths to keep their siblings alive. Seeing the look of sadness that Juro wears, Ushio begins to empathize with him and asks for his forgiveness by shedding tears, as he knows what it feels like to lose something important and not be able to do anything about it. This generates something in Juro, but a group of humans arrive at that moment and accidentally start a fire as they get scared of Juro. However, the humans turn around and do their best to help Ushio and the demons, which moves Juro and leaves him speechless. Now safe, Ushio promises new lands for Juro and his brothers. But Juro attacks Ushio only to be pierced by the spear, as he knows there is no turning back for him after leaving his human form. So he emotionally bids farewell to Ushio and his brothers. After this, a flashback reveals that the leader of the clan of monks to which Shigure belongs decreed that they will leave Ushio alone, as tradition indicates that it is the spear that chooses its bearer, so the clan will stop pursuing Ushio and Tora. Meanwhile, Ushio relaxes in the hot springs to heal his wounds, as recommended by the demons. Suddenly, they hear an angelic voice singing near the place, and as they approach, they discover a waifu bathing there. Seeing the pair of gawkers, she runs off, which embarrasses Ushio, as he had no intention of inconveniencing the waifu. However, Tora points out that the girl is not normal. Meanwhile, the girl arrives home and is greeted in a very bad way. In fact, she is locked in a room with another strange girl. The next day, Ushio rescues the waifu from a tragic accident and learns that she is part of the wealthiest family in town, as a woman nearby reveals this to him. Ushio decides to carry the waifu home, but she regains consciousness on the way and explains that she often faints in the street because she is very weak. She also quickly confesses that she is able to see Tora, as she belongs to a white-haired family lineage capable of seeing the spirit world. As a form of thanks, the waifu introduces herself as Saya and invites Ushio to stop by her house to meet her father. However, things immediately become tense between these two, as the man is too rude to Saya. Once alone, Saya explains to Ushio that her family has long been dedicated to serving the Takatori clan, since despite being physically weak, they possess sensitivity to the spiritual world. Her mother taught her to mediate between humans and spirits, but she lived to the last of her days serving a family that never valued her. After this, she takes them to the room of the girl we saw at the beginning, who is actually a millenary deity called Omamori-sama, known for blessing everything around her and impoverishing all the places she leaves. The Takatori family has had Omamori-sama living in their house for many, many years, and they use Saya's lineage to keep her comforted. However, Omamori-sama's real name is Zashikiwarashi, and she has had enough of living cooped up, so she asked Saya to bring the spear user to break the magical barrier that forbids her to leave the place. Meanwhile, Saya's father remembers that many years ago, Omamori-sama had prophesied to him that a young man with a spear was going to free her, so he desperately runs around the house in search of Ushio. Upon arrival, she tries to thwart Ushio's plans, but is obviously no match for him. However, Saya butts in and tells Ushio not to destroy the barrier, as she knows Omamori-sama would lose his life after breaking the seal. Omamori-sama tells her that he has spent the last 200 years watching Saya's ancestors die in front of her, and that he does not want to witness Saya's death, which moves Saya. Anyway, Saya feels that she would be dishonoring her ancestors if she lets the Takatori house lose its fortune. The clan leader takes advantage of this and tries to manipulate her by telling her that she will have no place to go if she loses the house. However, Ushio manages to convince Saya and the magical barrier is destroyed, so Omamori-sama says goodbye to Saya and makes it clear that poverty will befall the Takatori house. Ushio bids Saya an emotional farewell and leaves without worries, as Zashikiwarashi's blessing will guarantee Saya's fortune. Days later, Inoue discovers that his father, who is fond of antiques, has bought a strange mirror to add to his collection. At that time, Asako arrives at the house to keep Inoue company, as her parents will be leaving for a trip for a few days. At school, everyone notices that Asako is very uncomfortable and irritated, and they take advantage of the situation to make fun of her feelings for Ushio, as she does not recognize them. After leaving school, the waifus go to Ushio's house to receive information, and learn that Shigure sent Ushio to do some errands at some relative's house, which upsets Asako, since Ushio didn't even warn them. Meanwhile, Ushio and Tora have dinner with Juro's brothers before leaving for the city again. After this, Ushio goes outside to relax, but the opposite happens. He sees a mirage of Asako reflected in the waters, and immediately runs to ask Juro's brothers for explanations. They take him to the mountains to talk to Anji, the greatest expert on mirrors, and the only person who can help them with something like this. Although Anji is terrified to see the spear-bearer and the legendary demon Nagatobi Maru, he agrees when he sees that Ushio has no evil intentions. Anji shows everything that happened using his magic, and reveals that a demon living inside the ancient mirror kidnapped the waifus. This mirror demon is called Kyoma, and Ushio should enter the mirror dimension to defeat it. Anji opens the portal and warns him that he must be very fast to defeat the demon, as he cannot keep the portal open for long, and Ushio will be trapped in that dimension if he is not fast. Tora joins the journey, as Inoue was very kind to him. When Ushio confronts the demon, he is extremely effective and manages to defeat it with a single blow. After getting his waifus to safety, he bids them farewell. The next day, the two avoid talking about it, as they believe it was just a dream and do not want to give cringe. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Ushio, a large number of demons plan a surprise assault to wipe him out. On the other hand, Ushio says goodbye to Juro's brothers to continue his journey together with Tora. On the way, Tora keeps insisting on traveling by bus, so Ushio agrees, and as expected, Tora quickly gets bored and wants to continue traveling on foot. However, a strange feeling puts them on alert, and they immediately discover that a group of demons are seeking revenge and violently attack Ushio, causing severe damage to the bus. Ushio decides to leave the place early to avoid further losses, but they are shrewdly pursued by the group of demons, and Ushio almost loses his life. Fortunately, the spear acts of its own volition and leads Ushio to safety, where he meets a kind and harmless demon. However, Tora is confronted by one of the demons, as they don't understand how it can be that an S-class demon like Tora is accompanying a human in his fight. Tora repeats the same old thing about just wanting to keep others from eating him and manages to convince them, but the leader of the group proceeds to reveal the truth about Ushio's mother. At the same time, Ushio discovers that the real reason why all the demons hate him is his mother, who is somehow related to a very powerful demon named Hakumen no Mono, terror and main enemy of all the demons in China and Japan. The demons had literally made an alliance to fight Hakumen no Mono, but even by pooling their powers, they could not face him, and he had to flee before the humans realized the war that had been unleashed. Ushio could not believe his ears, but when he was about to discover the truth about his mother, he was forced to flee before the rest of his pursuers arrived on the scene. Meanwhile, Juro's brothers fight against the demons trying to capture Ushio, as they feel they owe him their lives. Tora is still confronted by Hitotsuki, the leader of the demons, who reveals that Ushio's mother was in charge of protecting the Hakumen no Mono by using a magical barrier that no demon was able to break through. During the night, Ushio dines with an old man he rescued in the forest and takes advantage of the moment to reveal to him the truth of the spear and the reason why there are so many demons lurking in the city. However, a large group of demons quickly attacks the city, and Ushio has no choice but to fight them, despite being at an abysmal disadvantage, when he was about to perish. Reishin and Kagari miraculously save him, but they too are wounded and are no match for an army of demons commanded by Hitotsuki. Tora does not stop meditating on the talk he had with Hitotsuki, but he cannot stand idly by while Ushio is in danger. so he shows up just in time to distract everyone with a surprise attack and take his allies to safety, no matter that this makes him look like a traitor in front of the other demons. Tora pulls his allies to safety, and they are immediately enveloped by a dense fog. Moments later, Ushio notices that his friends have disappeared, and that he is in a safe and peaceful place, so he begins to look for Tora. However, he discovers that he was taken there by Zashiki Warashi and the leader of the demons, who finally reveals to Ushio that his mother is in charge of protecting the Hakumen no Mono, the nine-tailed fox demon that has been tormenting all demons for 2 centuries. In reality, Ushio's mother belongs to a whole lineage of women who have protected this demon, and Ushio is given the mission to find his mother to ask her why her family made this decision. He also discovers that Warashi convinced the leader to stop Ushio from being chased by the demons until he finds his mother. Upon leaving the meeting, the group discovers that Hitotsuki refused to follow the leader's orders due to his hatred for Ushio's mother, which resulted in him having to confront Tora, who has a centuries-old score to settle with Hitotsuki. The leader authorizes the fight and allows Hitotsuki to continue pursuing Ushio as long as he manages to defeat Tora. However, Tora is superior to Hitotsuki, and Hitotsuki has no choice but to obey the leader's orders. Before saying goodbye, Tora tells Hitotsuki that he did not give him the final blow because he is no longer the same as before. In fact, he demands not to be called by his old name anymore before leaving the place. However, the story can't leave us without epic fights. So while Ushio prepares to find his mother, the Hakumen no Mono sends new forces to stop the bearer of the beast spear, as the time to awaken from his slumber draws near. Days later, Ushio and Tora arrive in Hokkaido once and for all, but only minutes after arriving, they encounter a strange waifu who defeats one of the Hakumen no Mono's creatures without trouble. She also introduces herself as Hinoa Sekimori, one of the candidates chosen by the clan to use the spear. Meanwhile, a meeting among the clan's top brass reveals that the candidates chosen for the spear have left the academy to go in search of Ushio, as they have spent their entire lives training to obtain the spear, and a novice was the one who snatched that privilege away from them. Like any woman, Hinoa reminds Ushio of all the mistakes she has made in the past time, listing them one by one. This saddens Ushio, as he feels responsible for the losses he has had to witness on his journey. Furthermore, the waifu cannot believe that Ushio accepts that Tora is still alive, so she takes the spear out of his hand and tears him down emotionally. Then she leaves the place before her fellow academy members find her. Tora tries to encourage Ushio by telling him that if he doesn't stop behaving like a pushover, she will have to devour him, which makes Ushio smile and decide to look for the spear, as he can't let things end like this. Upon arrival, they see that one of Hakumen no Mono's servants is mopping the floor with the waifu, as the spear won't obey her. Ushio saves the waifu using the power of the spear and proves that he makes a great team together with Tora, as he destroys the servant of Hakumen no Mono's servant and sends him back home with his tail between his legs to send a threatening message to his leader. The waifu is perplexed to see all this, but cannot give up her pride, so she tells Ushio that she will only let him keep the spear until she is able to finish her training. Also, she warns him that the other candidates will come after him. The next day, while Ushio was thinking about what happened with the waifu, a boy with a disturbing look riding a motorcycle and makes Ushio uncomfortable, who leaves the place to avoid further accidents. However, Tora returns to the place to find out more about the boy and discovers that he is another of the candidates Hinoa had mentioned. The young man introduces himself as Nagare Akiba and reveals that he not only wants to snatch the spear from Ushio, but also wants to defeat Tora. Nagare begins to attack with all his might and appears to be far superior to Tora, but Tora is only holding back his true powers. Nagare begins to interrogate Tora, as he wants to know why he accompanies Ushio on his journey and behaves like a being without evil. Tora proves that his powers are far above Nagare's and makes it clear to him that if he wanted to, he could act like a monster, but that he is only with Ushio because he is having fun. Tora leaves the place, and another scene shows us that the bus Ushio boarded is possessed by Hakumen no Mono's servants. In the middle of the trip, the spear warns Ushio that there are demons on board, which he discovers moments later as he sees them attacking the driver. Meanwhile, Tora and Nagare notice what is happening to the bus and set off to catch up with Ushio. When they arrive, they discover that he is in trouble, but as usual, he doesn't want to save himself without doing everything he can to help others. The three of them carry out an incredible plan to save all the passengers, and Nagare demonstrates why he was chosen to carry the legendary spear. However, Ushio is pinned down by one of the demons, and his part in the plan seems to be foiled. But Tora tells Nagare that he is about to see why the spear chose Ushio. Ushio makes an incredible display of skill and stops the bus before all the people are run over and saves the day. However, he feels guilty for putting everyone in danger, as none of that would have happened if he hadn't gotten on that bus. Nagare offers to give Ushio a ride on a motorcycle to his next destination, and Tora reveals to him that he is another of the clan's candidates. On the way, the group notices a caravan of motorcyclists behind them, so they stop to talk. The leader of the group is June, the sister of Satoru Moritsuna, who was the clan's leading candidate. June reveals that Satoru has been missing for more than 2 weeks, and that everyone is looking for him to prevent him from doing something crazy, as he took the fact that Ushio took the spear very badly. At that moment, a horrifying creature appears and is immediately revealed to be controlled by Satoru, who is indeed looking for the beast's spear. In his eagerness to defeat Ushio, he violently attacks all of his friends and tortures Ushio to weaken him, to the point that Tora must intervene to save him. However, seeing that Satoru is mistreating his own sister, Ushio uses the spear and destroys the beast, so Satoru must flee. Tora quickly reveals that Satoru is being possessed by the servants of the Hakumen no Mono, as he could feel their evil presence infesting Satoru's entire body. The next day, everyone joins Ushio's journey, as they know that Satoru will go after him. However, Tora reveals that freeing Satoru from those demons is almost impossible, but Ushio refuses to sit idly by and communicates with the mirror demon to get answers. Thanks to this, he manages to talk to the demon leader, and he explains that the only way to save Satoru is to enter his body, but humans are not capable of doing this. Ushio is the only one capable of doing so thanks to the power of the spear, but he could lose his humanity completely if the power of the spear corrupts him completely. This demoralizes everyone and saddens Ushio, as Jun regrets how indifferent he was to his brother in the past. At that moment, Satoru appears and starts attacking everyone. Jun intervenes and clings to his brother, causing him to take control of his body for an instant. Satoru seizes the moment of lucidity and decides to end his suffering before anyone else is harmed. Fortunately, Ushio manages to save him, and after feeling Jun's anguish, decides to take matters into his own hands, even though Nagare warns him that such a decision will cause him to lose his humanity. The mirror demon communicates with Ushio at that precise moment to introduce him to an Izuna, a creature expert in possessing humans. Tora stops Ushio moments before entering Satoru's body, and tells him that he will accompany him until his last moments as a human to eat him. Once inside Satoru's body, Izuna guides Ushio and Tora to defeat the demons that control Satoru's various organs. When they reach the brain, they discover that there is a huge amount of demons, and they cannot use devastating attacks, as that would damage Satoru. Fortunately, they manage to get rid of all the demons thanks to Jun's love, which enters like a halo of light inside Satoru. The only enemy left to defeat is Chibakama, one of Hakumen no Mono's minions. The battle is so fierce that Izuna is injured in an attempt to save Ushio, but Ushio comes up with a plan to defeat Chibakama. Izuna asks Tora to communicate with Jun and explain what happens when she shows her love to Satoru, so the waifu looks Satoru in the eyes, and Ushio leads Chibakama into a trap to burn him with Jun's light. However, Izuna must sacrifice herself to restrain the villain, and Ushio goes mad, as he cannot allow someone else to lose their life because of him. So he gives his soul completely to the spear and begins to suffer the consequences, although he manages to defeat the monster and save his friends. Afterwards, Satoru regains consciousness, and as he cries, Ushio and the others leave his body through a tear. However, Ushio is completely corrupted and takes on a creepy demonic appearance. At that very moment, the clan's top brass were meeting to talk about Ushio and the candidates, but the spirit of the clan's founder appears in front of them to reveal to them that Ushio has become an uncontrolled beast. She reveals that they will have to use the comb to bring Ushio back to normal, so they initiate all the protocol to carry out the mission. As the clan prepares Shigure to send him to Asahikawa, the founder gathers the women with whom Ushio has a bond, quickly explaining that they will have to comb their hair with an ancestral comb to return Ushio to normal, and each of them sets off on a swift journey. Meanwhile, Ushio struggles with all his might to control his body and avoid harming innocent people. In his unconscious, he meets one of the ancestors who forged the spear and understands that all the bearers have been consumed by the spear in their attempt to defeat the Hakumen no Monkey. On the other hand, the entire group gathers at Kamui Kotan to intercept Ushio on the way and perform the protocol. To do this, the monks must create a magical barrier so that the waifus can comb Ushio's hair. So the mission to retrieve the comb falls to Tora and Izuna, who manage to do so quickly. Once the monks activate the barrier, Reiko is the first to try to comb Ushio's hair, and although she receives a big blow, she manages to do it and proves that they are in time to save him. Ushio manages to evade the waifus and runs in another direction, but Hinoa manages to trap him in a magical barrier. As Saya was already accustomed to breaking through Omamori's magical barrier, she is in charge of combing Ushio's hair a second time. This restores the hopes of the whole group, and before Ushio attacks her friends to steal their comb, Tora saves Mayuko and Jun locks him in a barrier again. The next waifu to try to control the beast is Yu, who proves to have more reflexes than Goku in Ultra Instinct mode, as she manages to comb Ushio's hair and return him to normal for a few moments. The whole group is hopeful, as the goal is almost accomplished, but the monks begin to get weaker and weaker and make a superhuman effort to keep the magic barrier standing. The founder tells the group that they must hurry, as Ushio is on his way to fight a part of the Hakumen no Mono near the site, so they all quickly head to stop him. Mayuko tries to talk to her friend, but he doesn't even recognize her and runs to attack her, so Tora must save her on 2 different occasions. The monks can no longer resist the barrier, so they decide to retreat and create the barrier again, but in a smaller space, so they can expend less energy. Tora literally tanks a blow from Ushio's spear, so that Mayuko can comb it, and Ushio regains part of his humanity for a few moments. At that moment, the monk's barrier is broken, but Hiyu arrives just in time to use seals and create a new barrier that will last only a few minutes, so Asako has all the pressure on her shoulders. Fortunately for her, Ushio is extremely docile, as she sees in her unconscious as the founder and the spear forger talk about the past, revealing that they are siblings. Asako manages to comb Ushio's hair, and Ushio runs off to find the Hakumen no Monkey, so Asako goes after him regardless. At that moment, Ushio regains his humanity and fights alongside Tora to defeat all the demons in the most epic way possible. Afterwards, the group hears Ushio mention that he literally remembers nothing of what happened, and that he thinks it was all a dream. Tora accompanies him to the Hakumen no Mono's lair, and the waifus don't get a chance to say goodbye to him, even though they know they will see him soon. After a long journey, Ushio and Tora arrive at the lair of the Hakumen no Mono, and discover that the demon dwells in a temple no less. Once inside, they encounter a strange and twisted creature that puts them on alert. However, the creature introduces itself as Tokisaka, and proves that it has no malicious plans, as it is only there to teach them the truth about the past. First, he reveals that the Hakumen no Monkey was forced to take refuge in that lair many, many years ago, as humans and demons worked together tirelessly to weaken it. However, they could not finish him off without the beast's spear, so the Hakumen no Mono had the opportunity to flee, leaving only a part of his body in the lair. The humans understood that they could not defeat the fearsome demon without the beast's spear, so a strange woman volunteered to restrain the Hakumen no Mono using a powerful magical barrier to give the humans time to find the spear. She also pledged her entire lineage to do the same. At that moment, Ushio understood that this woman was none other than Jia Mei, founder of the clan and ancestor of the mother he has yet to meet. Tokisaka then reveals that she is able to manipulate the strings of time and takes them to the past, where they almost immediately meet the Jia Mei of the past, who looks very similar to Mayuko. Tora and Ushio quickly become aware of the presence of some demons, so they take care of them without much trouble. As a thank you, Jia Mei takes Ushio home and invites him over for dinner to introduce him to her parents. Jia Mei's mother tells Ushio that the king personally saw the Hakumen no Mono and was terrified, as this demon destroyed everything in its path 500 years ago. The king commissioned the village blacksmiths to make a weapon capable of defeating the Hakumen no Mono, so Jia Mei's father works tirelessly day and night to fulfill the king's wish. Moments later, Giryu, Jia Mei's older brother, arrives at the house. Ushio immediately remembers the person he saw while his soul was corrupted, but is surprised to see that Giryu looks very different this time. The young man reveals that the Hakumen no monkey is officially lurking around the place, as he heard too many rumors during his travels. The next day, Giryu and his father work tirelessly to make the king's order, so Jie explains to Ushio that her family used to live in the castle, as her father was one of the royal blacksmiths. However, the leader of the blacksmiths betrayed the king, and all the families were expelled from the castle. From that day on, Jie father became obsessed with his work, so that everyone can once again regain the king's trust. At that moment, Giryu and his father leave the workshop totally exhausted and frustrated for not being able to achieve their wish. This causes Giryu to confess to his father that on one of his journeys, he discovered how to forge a divine spear, but that he must employ dark arts in order to do so. Jie mother cuts her hair and gives it to him, as this is necessary to make the spear. 5 days later, the blacksmiths succeed in making the spear and take it to the royal ceremony to present it to the king. Unbeknownst to anyone, the Hakumen no monkey is present at the ceremony, camouflaging his appearance to go unnoticed. From one moment to the next, he strips himself of the body he had possessed and begins to wreak horrifying havoc, sowing chaos in the place and leaving one of the most disturbing scenes in the anime. The soldiers and blacksmiths try to defend the king, but the demon carries out a massacre in the place. Unfortunately, Jie father tries to test his sword and not only discovers that all his work was in vain, but he loses his life on the spot. After this, Ushio becomes desperate and tries to save everyone, as the demon begins to channel a devastating attack, but fails to save Jie mother, who received the demon's attack in defiance. Ushio becomes enraged and takes the spear to fight his archenemy. However, the Hakumen no Mono literally immobilizes Ushio just by looking at him, as it leaves him trembling in fear. Seeing this, Tora intervenes and manages to save Ushio, as the Hakumen no monkey doesn't even look back after attacking Ushio, believing that Ushio would be struck down. The demon absolutely destroys the whole town and leaves everything in ruins, which demoralizes Ushio and leaves him devastated, as he feels insignificant next to the nine-tailed fox. Tora tries to cheer him up by explaining that not even he dares to face the fox, but Ushio is quickly distracted by the fact that Jie has regained consciousness. To clear his head, Ushio leaves the shelter, but finds Giryu in the workshop, consumed by anger and sadness. So he tries to calm him down by explaining that he will be in charge of making the legendary spear in the future. Giryu reveals that he knows the true method of forging a divine weapon, telling an ancient story about a king who sacrificed his own daughter to the gods in order to create indestructible armor. Obviously, the two refuse to do such a thing, but Jie shows up at that moment to give us goosebumps, as she reveals that she will do anything to keep her father's legacy alive. Ushio and Giryu try to stop her, but the waifu throws herself into the foundry so her brother can forge the spear. This drives Giryu mad, who begins to work like an animal on the spear as he loses his sanity, recognizing that deep inside he wanted Jie to perform the sacrifice. This causes the evil to completely infect Giryu, and he begins to believe that he is a demon, becoming pure hatred towards the Hakumen no monkey and becoming one with the spear. At that moment, Ushio discovers the reason why he is linked to the spear, as Giryu left it engraved on the hilt of the spear, which contains the soul of both brothers. The spirit of Jie and Tokisaka appear to reveal that the beast spear traveled the continent on its own, defeating every demon it came across. Years later, Jie reincarnated as Yuki, a young Japanese girl who encountered the Hakumen no Mono, and, as previously revealed, encased it in a magical barrier until humans are able to find the beast spear. When Yuki lost her vitality, Jie reincarnated as Mikado Hizaki and continued her legacy. The last of the waifus to maintain the barrier is Sumako Hizaki, also known as Sumako Aotsuki, Ushio's mother. Jie reveals that Sumako had a dream in which she gave birth to the spear bearer, and as everything matched the prophecy, Jie understood that she had to send Sumako to the human world for 2 years. Ushio is thrilled to hear this, as he understands that it was in those 2 years that his parents met. Jie says goodbye and wishes luck to Ushio, who knows that he is not yet at the level of Hakumen no monkey, and decides to return to his old life for a few days. Ushio returns to his father's house to relax and prepare for the final battle, as he knows there will be no turning back once they face the Hakumen no Mono. After enjoying the day with his friends, Ushio returns home with his waifus, but a strange boy catches his attention, as he is about to be run over, and doesn't even make an effort to move. Ushio saves the boy, and the boy doesn't even thank him. He just greets Ushio as if he has known him all his life. Ushio keeps thinking about this all day, but the boy comes to his house just a few hours later and introduces himself as Kiryo Inasa, one of the successors of the Beast Spear. Things get tense between Tora and Kuin, the creature accompanying Kiryo, but Shigure arrives at that moment to interrupt them and explain that an avatar of the Hakumen no Mono is wreaking havoc on the clan temple. The young men board the helicopter and immediately set off for the temple. On the way, Shigure explains to Ushio that this will be their first battle against the Hakumen no Mono, since only one avatar of that demon is capable of defeating all the monks of the temple without effort. Kiryo comments that they should stop relying on the beast's spear, as it chooses its successor, and should instead produce more scythes like the ones he possesses, a comment that annoys Shigure. Arriving at the battlefield, Ushio sees that the avatar is literally destroying everything and decides to join the monks. But Shigure takes him inside the temple, as he wants to introduce him to one of the women who had the Hakumen no monkey sealed inside the barrier. Upon arrival, Ushio treats the old woman with much respect due to the fact that she literally protected humanity for 300 years. This gladdens the heart of the woman, who had no chance to continue enjoying her children and grandchildren due to her duty. Ushio bids farewell to the old woman as she smiles peacefully, grateful to be able to meet the spear bearer. Minutes later, Ushio jumps onto the battlefield and fights with all his might against the avatar. But for the first time in the entire anime, he realizes that his enemy is on another level. Also, Tora is being held back by Queen and is unable to join the battle. Kiryo sees everything from afar and doesn't join the fight, even when Ushio and the monks are being mowed down by the avatar. The avatar manages to corner Ushio and pin him down for the final blow, but the elderly Mikado Hizaki appears just in time to cover the blow with her barrier and demonstrates why she was chosen to seal the Hakumen no Mono for 300 years. Mikado uses all her strength to turn the Hakumen to stone and knocks it out of battle, but practically loses her life for doing this and collapses to the ground. Ushio rushes to the old woman's aid, while Kiryo finally makes his appearance to destroy the beast. Mikado says goodbye to everyone emotionally and tells them that they must all help for Ushio to defeat the Hakumen no monkey, as he won't be able to do it alone. At that moment, some brainless and heartless monks interrupt the moment to praise Kiryo, saying that he was able to defeat the avatar in one blow. The leader states the obvious, namely that Kiryo only did something when Mikado knocked out the avatar. Then, a scene at the end of the episode reveals Kiryo's mother treating her son like a child and asking him to destroy the beast's spear. Days later, Ushio spends the day locked in his room thinking about how he wasn't able to save Mikado. So Tora becomes enraged and tries to cheer him up with blows, as he realizes that Ushio is extremely depressed. The two begin to fight, and Ushio takes out all his anger by wielding the spear violently, but Tora leaves the scene and tells him that he will return when he stops acting like a failure. Meanwhile, Shigure and the clan leader meet to discuss Kiryo, as many monks have become convinced that the beast spear is useless and share the same ideology as the boy. Their suspicions are confirmed hours later, as the monks help Kiryo trap Ushio to destroy the spear. And although Ushio manages to beat up the monks, Kiryo uses a special cloth to wrap the spear and seal its power, leaving Ushio encased in a magical barrier. Meanwhile, Nagare meets with Tora and makes him reflect, as Ushio is in danger due to Kiryo's plans. Fortunately for them, Hinoa finds Ushio and frees him from the magical barrier. Later, they both return to the temple to explain what has happened, and the clan leader realizes that the division among the clan's monks has already begun. He also reveals that Kiryo is the son of Inosa, a blacksmith monk who was very passionate about his work, until he became obsessed with the idea of replacing the beast spear with a weapon that did not require a special wielder. For this reason, he was expelled from the clan, but returned sometime later to introduce Kiryo, a boy with great spiritual energy who wielded a strange scythe. The clan chose him as the successor to the spear, but things became turbulent later on. Meanwhile, Tora and Nagare arrive at the House of Whispers, the place where Kiryo was born and raised. Nagare explains that the place has been nicknamed that way because it is inhabited by artificial demons, created using science and sorcery. They hate humans because they wish to look like them and can't, so they keep whispering words of contempt towards them. Tora and Nagare fight their way through them, until they reach a room full of scythes just like Kiryo's, and after this, they get a big surprise when they see Inasa's corpse. Meanwhile, Hinoa and Ushio infiltrate the mansion and discover Inasa's diary, in which she wrote down each of her investigations chronologically. The diary mentions that one day, a woman named Tawako appeared, who helped Inasa make the scythes and won him over with her enthusiasm for destroying the beast's spear. At that moment, the group meets again, and they become alert, as a new threat begins to attack them. Ushio continues reading Inasa's diary, and discovers that Tawako was the one who had the idea of kidnapping Kiryo to subject him to different experiments in order to make him suitable for her interests. Ushio and Tora start looking for Kiryo right away, but they run into Kuin, who tries to stop them. Queen's haughty and arrogant comments annoy Tora greatly, especially since he keeps making fun of Ushio over and over again. Enraged, Tora tells Ushio that he will take care of Kuin, so they both take their leave, and Ushio quickly runs to find the spear before it is too late. However, Kiryo and the monks are performing the ritual, so Ushio tries to avoid it with all his might, but fails, and his heart is destroyed when he sees how the spear is sealed. After this, Shigure appears and makes a fool of all the monks, revealing that Tawako is nothing more and nothing less than a part of the Hakumen no Mono. Kiryo finally acts like a child and begins to cry bitterly as he realizes that he has been manipulated and used his entire life. Ushio despairs at the realization that he has lost the spear, but Giryu manages to communicate with him from the underworld, and Ushio manages to establish his bond again with the spear, calling out to it. The avatar trembles with fear and calls the golem protector of the house to blackmail Ushio by telling him that if he gives up his life, he will let Nagare and Hinoa live. Obviously, Ushio accepts the deal, but he manages to trick the demon and destroys the golem with a single blow. Now that Ushio has the spear again, the avatar has no choice but to take Tawako's form again to get Kiryo to fight on his side. The boy takes her side again for an instant, but quickly comes to his senses and ends up being the one to finish off the demon himself. After this, Ushio makes him reflect and Kiryo leaves the place very saddened, while Tora and Ushio get back together to follow their destiny. Fortunately for Ushio, things calm down briefly, and he takes the moment to rest, as he has a very upset stomach. Tora decides to visit Mayuko, as she always gives him hamburgers to satiate his hunger. Meanwhile, the two most succulent and delicious wafers in the world hang out in Mayuko's room, but Asako comes up with the idea of visiting Ushio to help him with his upset stomach. With some complicity, Mayuko tells Asako that she will not be able to accompany her, so she bids her a friendly farewell. Moments later, Tora arrives at the place and the two spend time together until Mayuko says goodbye, as she received an anonymous invitation to attend a party. This worries Tora, so he decides to take Mayuko's form to investigate a bit. Only a few hours later, he discovers that Mayuko is being interrogated by some strange men, who quickly reveal their true intentions. Both are demons who not only want to devour Mayuko, but also try to get information about Ushio from her. Tora manages to save the waifu, and the two flee the scene to spend the afternoon at the mall. Mayuko tries on a wedding dress, and confesses that she would like to marry Ushio, but she can't do something like that to Asako. This infuriates Tora, as he cannot understand how she is able to put someone else's happiness above her own. Mayuko asks Tora to make her fantasy of marriage come true, and the demon agrees to please the waifu, fulfilling the wish of us all. However, just as he was about to pledge to take care of her at all times, the demons attack again, and Tora comes up with an excellent plan to trick them. However, Mayuko is the one who manages to teach the demon a great lesson in life by showing him that she would also give her life for him. In the end, they decide to fulfill their vows to each other, and Tora begins to remember Mayuko's name once and for all, giving us the most tender and strange ship of the anime. Days later, Ushio begins to be closely followed by a group of scientists, as they have plans with him and the Beast Spear. After working out a plan to see Ushio in action, the scientists are surprised by the spear wielder's great skill, so they decide to use tranquilizer darts to kidnap him. Meanwhile, Shigure receives confidential information about the Hammer Organization, a group of scientists trying to create a weapon to defeat the Hakumen no Mono. What he doesn't know is that Ushio is already in the hands of the scientists, but the one who finds out quickly is Tora, since he saves Asako just in time and understands the whole situation immediately. Unfortunately, it was all a trap, and Tora also falls into the hands of the scientists, who use cutting-edge technology to capture him. However, This was all premeditated by Tora, who literally allowed himself to be captured in order to infiltrate the base and rescue Ushio together with Asako, carrying out a clever plan. The waifu infiltrates little by little until she discovers a room full of demons who are subjected to horrible experiments. There she meets Baldanders, a boy who knows no other life but the one inside, so Asako empathizes with him and frees him. The boy quickly returns the favor as he protects her from an avatar of the non-monkey Hakumen that has been unleashed on the place. This avatar absorbed the powers of the various demons in the place, so he has become unstoppable. Ushio enters the scene and fights with all his might, but as usual, his efforts are not enough to defeat an avatar without Tora's help. Luckily, he enters in epic fashion and joins the fight. As Tora fights with all his might, the scientists realize that the gas pipes have been destroyed, and the room will begin to fill with toxins in no time, so they decide to flee. Ushio and Asako rebuke them and try to make them think, but they only recommend them to leave the place before they blow it up themselves. However, seeing how they are all willing to risk their lives, one of the scientists decides to help Asako hatch a risky plan that could cost them their lives in just a few minutes. At the same time, Shigure and several army soldiers move in at full speed to take matters into their own hands. In the midst of the chaos, the scientist is seriously injured by the Hakumen, so Asako must take charge of activating the paralyzing machine. When the moment arrives, everyone agrees and manages to seriously injure the avatar, in addition to rescuing Baldanders. The scientist is left open-mouthed when she realizes the great synchronicity that Ushio and Tora have, understanding that they will never be able to fight the spiritual world with human weapons. With the Hakumen avatar practically defeated, the scientist decides that the best thing to do is to completely destroy the place to exterminate any avatar particles that could bring more trouble. However, she reveals that she is in no condition to leave the place due to her injuries, which leaves Asako devastated. Tora must carry the youngsters as their bodies fall unconscious from the toxic fumes. The scientists say an emotional goodbye via video call, and the place completely explodes as Tora makes an epic escape. Ushio and Asako regret not being able to save Helena, the scientist, but their companions reveal that the old woman had her last minutes with a big smile on her face. Days later, everything returns to normal in Ushio's life, and the season ends, making it clear that the awakening of the Hakumen no Mano is just around the corner. The second season begins just as the previous one ended, with a flashback to Hakumen no Mano's past. Meanwhile, the most precious waifu of the anime meets with her friends to ask them for help, as she wants to give a gift to Ushio, who at that very moment was visiting Asako's parents. The two meet on the way as they were on their way home. As usual, they argue over absurd things and leave angry with each other, indignant at never being able to say what they feel. However, the situation couldn't be more ideal for the two to spend a moment together, as Japan's traditional cherry trees are at their most beautiful time of the year. Ushio stops being brainless and runs to Asako to accompany her home, leaving us with the most kawaii moment of the anime. They both blush and hang out together until suddenly Asako completely changes her expression and starts to disown Ushio, asking him to leave her alone. Ushio runs after the waifu, but when he arrives home, he discovers that her parents don't know who she is either, which leaves him dumbfounded. Before leaving, Ushio eats a bowl of ramen for lunch at Asako's parents' place, and they try to console him, explaining that Asako has eyes for no one else, as she is in love with a boy whose name they are unable to remember at that moment, causing Ushio to burst into tears, as he knows he is that boy they mention. Meanwhile, the leader of the demons begins to hatch a plan to help Ushio in his fight against the Hakumen, even revealing that he has prepared an incredible magical armor to make their fights easier. But something strange happens in the spiritual dimension. At night, Ushio rushes to the temple to find his father, as he is all alone in his fight and needs to find an explanation for what happened to Asako, but discovers that all the monks have turned to stone. This tears Ushio apart emotionally, as he feels devastated and thinks it's all his fault. But Tora comes out to meet him, and although at first he thinks he doesn't recognize him either, he bursts into tears when he sees that everything is still the same with Tora. The two begin a new journey, and Tora reveals that Mayuko probably still remembers Ushio, as there is a spiritual bond that unites them. He also explains that the Hakumen no Mano is behind everything that is happening. A flashback reveals that Kiryu was left in charge of Mayuko's family, as it was a request from the clan, so the following scene shows that Mayuko takes loving care of Kiryu and Queen. At that moment, Ushio arrives at the waifu's house and meets Asako, who again shows rejection to Ushio's presence. However, a horde of demons commanded by the leader arrives on the scene and begins to wreak havoc, revealing that they are not only unable to remember Ushio, but have also completely forgotten Tora. The demons kidnap Mayuko, so Ushio and Tora start a chase to rescue her, but are shot down by Raishin. Ushio regains consciousness and discovers that he is being cared for by Seiya, making him weep with joy. The waifu reveals that she is surrounded by a magical barrier that inhibits the Hakumen no Mono parasites, which have infected everyone's mind to the point that they wiped out any memories related to Ushio and Tora. The Hakumen no Mono derives its power from fear and uncertainty, which is why it has been able to run a reign of terror for so many years. However, everyone has begun to believe in Ushio and Tora, as they have proven that the wool of the beast is capable of standing up to the Hakumen. This caused fear to turn into hope, and the power of the Hakumen no Mono became less and less. Before it was too late, the Hakumen no Mono removed all memory of Ushio and Tora from everyone's minds. Ushio doesn't understand how Seiya knows all this information, but he understands everything immediately upon seeing Tokisaka appear on the scene, revealing that he has made thousands upon thousands of trips into the future to discover a way to defeat the Hakumen. However, the outcome of the fight was always the same. The beast's spear was completely destroyed. In addition, it reveals that Mayuko was kidnapped to prevent another spear from being forged, since she is the direct successor of Chiamei, and her blood could be used to forge a new spear. In conclusion, the fearsome demon literally took into account every detail to prevent Ushio from saving the world. In fact, the demons approach Asako to tell her that she can leave, as they will only need Mayuko, but Asako tries to defend her friend and almost loses her life when she hits the magical barrier of the place. However, Mayuko surprises everyone, including herself, by being able to save her friend using magical powers. Chiamei appears on the scene and reveals to Mayuko that she will be the next heir to her lineage, as Ushio's mother's powers are coming to an end. As expected, no one remembers Ushio, so Chiamei tries to make them all remember why all the demons have come back together. But one of them reacts violently and seals the wafus in a barrier. After this, they are taken to the sacrificial room, where all the demons gather to see how the spear is forged. However, Asako leaves everyone open-mouthed by giving herself up as the sacrificial object, as Mayuko will still be useful to them to keep the magic barrier activated, while the spear can be forged with anyone, due to the fact that the only important thing is Chiamei's blood. Mayuko tries to prevent this, but as everyone agrees, Asako bids her friend a loving farewell and faces her fate. Before throwing herself into the burning lava, the waifu faintly remembers Ushio, who arrives at that very moment and does not hesitate to throw himself into the lava to try to save Asako. Tora destroys the foundry before the youngsters are hurt, but they begin to be brutally attacked by all the demons. Mayuko is outraged at how Ushio and Tora are mistreated when they have done nothing wrong, so she uses her powers to get them out of the place. At that moment, hundreds of servants of the Hakumen no Mono appear, and a great war breaks out, so the group takes the opportunity to flee. However, Ushio does not want to leave those he considered friends to their fate, so he joins the battle despite how much this upsets Tora. Obviously, despite the anger, Tora joins the fight, and they show why they are the only ones capable of defeating the Hakumen. The demons are left open-mouthed and cannot understand why Ushio and Tora joined the battle, as they had been extremely hostile to them. Meanwhile, Mayuko looks at Asako's unconscious body, wishing her a speedy recovery and bidding farewell to Seiya to fulfill her duty as protector of the barrier. The next day, while Asako is recovering in the hospital, Ushio and Tora meet with Kiryu to tell him that he must be prepared for the day of the final battle, which excites the boy. The demons become hopeful again upon learning of Ushio and Tora's abilities, so they place their trust in them again, even though they were unable to remember. Meanwhile, Ushio gets a big surprise when he finds out that Hugh is able to remember him without any problems thanks to his magic eye. Minutes later, they encounter a group of demons that look very similar to Tora, so Ushio prepares to fight. However, the beast's spear does not respond, and Ushio despairs, so Hugh proceeds to explain that these monsters are of the same ethnicity as Tora, and do not emanate evil energy, so the spear does not see them as a threat. Hugh knows this as he has traveled back in time with Tokisaka to discover who attacked his family in the past and will finally take his revenge. At that moment, a demon practically just like Tora appears on the scene, and Hugh reveals that, in the past, that demon used to be a human named Sokue. In fact, he was an extremely evil man who enjoyed taking the lives of many people until one day, while fleeing the city, he found the spear of the beast and discovered that he could fight monsters for a living. Hugh reveals that, like Tora, evil completely corrupted Sokue and took over his soul. This perplexes Ushio, as he immediately understands that Tora was, at one time, a spear-bearer who was completely consumed by evil. Furthermore, Hugh reveals that the Azafus, Tora's ethnicity, turned to stone after being consumed by the spear. A flashback explains that the avatar of the Hakumen no Mono was the one who awakened Sokue to join his retinue of servants. After this, Hugh reminds the demon that he spent his entire life waiting for the moment to have him face him to avenge his family, so the fight between the two begins. However, after a few exchanges of blows, Hugh is seriously injured, and the demon leaves the place because he must meet with the Hakumen no Mono. In the evening, Hugh behaves uncharacteristically as he bids farewell to Ushio and Tora, which probably means that this is the last time he will see them, as he will go after Sokue's footsteps again. Days later, one of the army chiefs gets a big surprise when he finds a woman calling herself Jie-mei, the protector of the magical barrier of the Hakumen no Mono, in his office. Because of this, the military goes in search of Ushio and Tora, but on the way they are intercepted by Nagare, who apparently came to rescue Ushio. However, he quickly reveals that he is now working for the Hakumen no Mono on a voluntary basis. Ushio is perplexed to hear this, but his attention is quickly diverted as a helicopter from the Hammer organization arrives on the scene and Nagare immediately leaves. Ushio meets the scientists again, and after destroying a good number of demons, discovers that they had not lost their memories thanks to a technological helmet they had developed earlier. The scientists explained to Ushio that a supposed Jie-mei had appeared at the general's offices to convince them that they should bomb the bottom of the ocean to destroy the Hakumen no Mono during their sleep period. Ushio obviously knows that it is all part of a macabre plan by the Hakumen, as it is impossible for Jie-mei to come up with such an idea. As the Hakumen seeks to have the military destroy the magical barrier, Ushio must prevent their plan from being carried out, which is why the scientists give him the armor they found in the clan's temple. Before going to the Okinawa base, Ushio asks Tora to stop by his house, but when they arrive they encounter some Hakumen servants and the fight begins. Things were looking tough for Ushio and Tora, but they both get the power-up for this season. Ushio using the armor given to him by the scientists, and Tora taking as allies the Azafus that are turned into stone, which become a very powerful armor. After this, both go through the basement to relive the day they met, leaving one of the most epic scenes of the anime. Finally, Ushio and Tora arrive at the Okinawa base to stop the military plans, but Nagare quickly intervenes. Since Ushio cannot understand Nagare's motivations, he asks Tora to fight with Nagare while he tries to stop the military. Needless to say, Ushio begs Tora not to hurt Nagare, as he still doesn't understand what has happened to him. When Ushio arrives to talk to one of the generals, they show that they have -100 IQ, as the Hakumen convinced them that an avatar was going to try to prevent the attack by taking Ushio's form. The military locks Ushio together with 2 pilots, but the 3 agree to carry out a plan. Ushio pretends to take the pilots hostage so that the military will let him escape to the submarine in charge of the attack. Before going up, Ushio meets Asako, who was transported to the place by the organization Hammer. The waifu gives him a device developed by the scientists of the organization, and both say goodbye in the most emotional way of the anime, confessing their feelings despite Asako's amnesia. Meanwhile, Nagare and Tora fight frantically. The monk confesses that all his life he has done well because of his rare gift, which allows him to be the best at whatever he sets his mind to. Tired of not finding challenges that make him strive, Nagare becomes obsessed with the idea of defeating the fearsome Tora, which is why he allies himself with the Hakumen no Mono, as it is the only way Ushio will let the two have a fight to the death without interfering. Tora proves that he is on another level, and despite trying his best not to end Nagare's life, he seriously injures him. With his last gasps, Nagare asks Tora not to lie to Ushio about his last minutes. Epically, Nagare vanishes and Tora leaves the scene. Meanwhile, Ushio approaches the Hakumen no Mono barrier at full speed, using the spiritual energy reader. Locating the stone pillar protecting Ushio's mother, the young man asks the pilots to return to safety, as it is risky to subject the ship to such gigantic pressure. However, both refuse, as they believe in Ushio and his mission. The ship endures until they reach the pillar, where they discover that there is a kind of magic hatch that isolates the pressure. Ushio bids farewell to the pilots and ventures into the most epic moment of his life. On the way, Ushio thinks over and over again about what it will be like to meet his mother, but when he finally enters the place, he is perplexed and at a loss for words. All the reproaches and complaints turned into love and affection, as none of them could hold back tears of emotion. However, the beautiful reunion begins to turn into a farewell, as the demons from the east and west discuss whether it is right or wrong to attack the Hakumen after the destruction of the barrier, a situation that fills the generals of the army with anxiety. So they start the attack once and for all. The whole place is shaken, and Ushio regrets not having protected his mother, but the woman tells him that he did the right thing, to calm his heart and settle the outstanding debts before the final battle. The Hakumen no Mono escapes the barrier, and we finally see the beast that, for over 32 episodes, we have been waiting for. The submarines seem to be mere toy ships, and the demons are insignificant in front of the monstrosity of the nine-tailed fox. As the Hakumen no Mono sow chaos in the ocean, the clan's monks begin to wake up. The army despairs that the situation has gotten out of control for them, and for the demons, who are being mercilessly slaughtered. Ushio tries to help his mother, but she tells him that they must join forces and concentrate only on stopping the Hakumen as soon as possible, as it has destroyed the foundations of Japan, and the whole city will be submerged underwater if they don't hurry. The local news broadcasts begin to transmit what is happening on a national channel, so fear and despair spreads among the people. Obviously, they do not know that this increases the power of the Hakumen no Mono, but it is inevitable for humans not to be afraid of a beast that is literally capable of destroying an island with a single attack. While all this is happening, Ushio tells his mother that he does not want to lose her and does not care about the chaos that the Hakumen no Mono can sow. He will only protect her. This makes the woman angry, as she lived her whole life to protect the world, and he is not taking dimension of his responsibility. This drives Ushio mad, who begins to hate the Hakumen no Monkey from the depths of his heart, letting the spear begin to disturb him. Although the woman tries to convince him that he cannot fight with a heart full of hatred, Ushio jumps into battle completely crazed and makes wrong decisions over and over again. The Hakumen takes advantage of all this and manipulates him unfiltered, telling him that Nagare was a spy that he himself sent to betray Ushio, which is why he died at the hands of Tora. Ushio is perplexed to learn that Tora ended Nagare's life, so he bursts into tears and throws Tora out. Ushio's hatred starts to become so strong that he has visions with the creator of the spear and begins to identify with his story, so he desperately runs to fight the Hakumen no Mono. However, the spear is destroyed when he makes the first attack, destroying Ushio emotionally and causing everyone to despair. After this, the Hakumen leaves the place, as he feels that nothing can stop him from now on. Kiryu arrives to the place together with Tokisaka and reveals that he traveled to the past to know how the Hakumen was born. Besides, he discovered the rivalry that Tora maintains with the Hakumen more than 3,000 years ago. Meanwhile, Ushio continues to sink emotionally and lose control of his thoughts. However, he begins to see Tora in a vision and is shaken. Suddenly, he is incarnated in the life of a young man named Shagakusha, who is extremely mistreated by everyone in his town because he is the sole survivor of an accident that wiped out an entire town. Shagakusha lives on the streets and barely survives, which fills his heart with hatred to the point of feeling unbearable pain in his shoulder. However, he became extremely strong because of his hatred, so he became an elite soldier loved by the whole town. This annoyed Shagakusha even more, as the nobles still saw him as an expendable tool. He only sympathized with two farmer brothers who genuinely loved him, so he defended them under any circumstances and spent the best moments of his life together with them. In fact, one day he reveals to them that a comet fell on the city on the day of his birth, which is why everyone calls him Cursed Child. Moreover, he smiles for the first time in his life when he tells them that. Days later, an enemy troop attacks the town, and Shagakusha rushes to get his loved ones to safety. Unfortunately, he is ambushed, and despite using his own body to protect the waifu, she loses her life in front of his eyes. Shagakusha goes berserk and vents his hatred in all directions, wiping out the army in a second. Suddenly, the skin on her shoulder begins to tear, and the Hakumen no Mano makes its appearance, thanking Shagakusha for creating it. A flashback reveals that, on the day of Shagakusha's birth, the Hakumen burrowed into his shoulder to use it as a womb and feed on his hatred day after day. Shagakusha cannot believe what he is hearing, but the Hakumen leaves the place immediately and begins to wreak havoc in the city. When Shagakusha arrives on the scene, the only person who still kept him hopeful dies in front of his eyes, destroying him emotionally forever. After this, the Hakumen reveals that Shagakusha will never die, so he spends his whole life searching for him to take revenge. After this, Ushio finally understands that Shagakusha is nothing more and nothing less than the human version of Tora. He then realizes that it is all a message from the spear of the beast and prepares for battle. While Ushio had this revelation, Kiryu told everyone the same story, as he had traveled back in time together with Tokisaka and witnessed every single event. At that moment, the fragments of the spear begin to unite again, and Ushio asks for help from his loved ones to defeat the Hakumen, restoring hope to everyone. In addition, everyone remembers Ushio and Tora again thanks to the spear fragments, so the real final battle is about to be fought. Tora steps forward and starts attacking the Hakumen with all his might, which causes some hope among some of the children watching the fight from afar. In addition, Ushio's friends begin to give everyone hope by narrating Ushio and Tora's exploits. However, the Hakumen begin to feel the humans' fear diminish, so they rush to finish them off as soon as possible. To help, Saya uses all her power to open an interdimensional portal capable of reviving Mikado Hizaki, who arrives just in time to save Tora, as he was literally about to be devoured by the Hakumen. As Ushio realizes that Tora was fighting the Hakumen by himself to buy some time, he approaches him to give him his blood to drink, as well as apologizing wholeheartedly for being wrong and judging him. Ushio has the spear in his hands again and leaves everyone's mouths agape as he effectively hits the Hakumen no Mano. All the battlefronts seize the moment to work together and make a final blow. While the waifus do their best to seal the Hakumen no Mano, the scientists prepare their technological cannons to detonate it. In addition, monks and demons enclose the avatars of the nine-tailed fox in a magical barrier. The Hakumen begins to call on his only remaining helper, but he is in a life-and-death battle against Hugh. Consumed by anger and the desire to avenge his family, Hugh has no problem fighting to his last breath. But the desire to protect a helpless family further increases his determination. After being humiliated time and time again, Hugh literally makes an attack that puts his eyes and limbs at risk, but he manages to finish off the demon in an epic and efficient manner. In one of the saddest and most emotional scenes in the anime, Hugh bids farewell to this world while remembering his family. Meanwhile, Tora regrets not being able to give the Hakumen more of a fight, and although he tries not to break down, the thought of Ushio fills his heart with emotions that he is unable to understand. Mayuko's spirit suddenly appears and uses the magic comb to try to give Tora back her humanity, although this does not work. The waifu cries emotionally as she tells Tora that she does not want to lose him, which shocks Tora to his core, even though he is unable to understand what is happening to him. To prevent Mayuko from having to spend hundreds of years keeping the Hakumen barrier active, Tora decides that she must heal her wounds quickly to help Ushio in battle. However, the waifu heals all her wounds and wishes her luck in combat. Meanwhile, Kagari and Raishin help the army weather a wave of attacks to convince them that humans and demons must work together to save the world. Ushio regrets what happened to Tora, as he realizes that defeating the Hakumen without his help is virtually impossible. In fact, the Hakumen manages to break free of the barrier and puts the entire planet at risk. But Tora arrives just in time and joins Ushio, giving us one of the anime's most harrowing moments. The two prove why the anime is named after them and beat the crap out of everyone, rounding up the Hakumen with the help of the souls Saya released. Also, the scientists activate the remote device that Asako gave to Ushio, though the anime again destroys our hearts by showing that these scientists are about to lose their lives just as their friend did. However, before the tragedy, we are given some flashbacks to when the three of them were children. giving backstory to the three characters who went from hatred to love with the community. The Hakumen is cornered in a kind of magic ring, but quickly uses all his henchmen to try to get out of that situation. However, the entire city has changed its perspective since Ushio and Tora entered the scene, and fear turned into hope, so the demon begins to despair as he feels his power diminishing second by second. As a last resort, the Hakumen fragments his body to release a toxic mist that forces everyone to retreat. Obviously, Tora and Ushio do not plan to retreat again and decide to stay, even though they might not survive. The Hakumen reveals that, despite having shrunk in size to carry out the previous attack, it is now able to use 100% of its power and speed, proving that all of its tails are exceptionally strong. Outside the barrier, everyone does their best to ease Ushio and Tora's burden, as the Hakumen does not stop manipulating them to bring them down emotionally. Obviously, both are supernaturally determined and will not give up for anything in the world. The Azafus in Tora's armor tell him that he is special, so they decide to make a final attack to weaken the Hakumen, which, although they don't work literally, serve to make Tora realize that the nine-tailed fox also feels fear. Immediately, Tora uses the same strategy and begins to humiliate the Hakumen, telling him that he is terrified of the beast's spear and that he is nothing more than a coward who keeps looking down because he feels inferior to everyone. This finally pays off, as the Hakumen goes mad and recognizes that it hates everything related to light. A flashback reveals that, in the beginning, all positive energy made human life possible, while everything bad and negative fed the Hakumen, who never stopped coveting the beauty of humans. Tora quickly understands that the Hakumen no monkey is blinded by hatred and contempt, which is why he tries to bring those feelings towards all people to make their lives bitter. Listening to Tora, the demon goes crazy and starts to attack violently, as he felt humiliated and exposed. It even goes so far as to remove its eyes to avoid looking them in the face, and although this is supposed to be a nerf, the demon begins to move at supersonic speed due to the fact that it is able to sense the spear. As a last resort, Tora decides to stick the spear in his back to camouflage his presence, and let Ushio finish off the fox once and for all. Like any of us, Ushio flatly refuses and bursts into tears, but Tora tells him that the Hakumen's reign must come to an end one way or another. They both put on an incredible display and deliver the final blow to the fox, leaving us with the best animated part of the entire series. The Hakumen says goodbye amid sobs and wails, begging not to be remembered. After 39 episodes, Ushio and Tora manage to defeat the Hakumen, but both are doomed, and must say goodbye in the saddest and most melancholy way of all. Tora begins to slowly fade away, as Ushio looks at him in tears and wails, letting him know that he has been like a brother to him. Tora finally disappears, and although Ushio was slowly turning into a beast, the spirits of the spearsmiths destroy it completely to save Ushio. All the demons decide to turn into stone to restore the foundations of Japan and prevent the floods once and for all. Saya says goodbye once and for all to her guardian and sees her mother for the last time before the portal of souls is closed for good. Months later, everything returns to normal in the lives of Ushio, Mayuko, and Asako, although all three treasure with nostalgia and joy everything they lived together with Tora. As a consolation, the mirror demon appears after the credits to tell us that Tora will probably come back to life in the future. The end! Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new anime recaps.